Hello and welcome to the first of the 2024 Google Reference Programme webinars. Following a lot of consultation and an excellent roundtable process at BET in January of this year, we are really excited to kick off this new series, particularly aimed at the Google Reference schools and colleges from across the UK and Ireland. These webinars will focus specifically at developing, supporting and certainly celebrating that community. There is a fantastic wealth of knowledge and experience within the community that we are hoping to tap into, allowing members to join us and share all the best practice that is going on across the reference organisations in the UK and Ireland. We've got the first 4 webinar guests all lined up, but if you do want to join us, please do get in touch. When I say us, let's put some faces to names. You will have no doubt received emails from Google for Education's Head of Customer Success for the UK and Ireland, Grace Kelly. And if I haven't already met you myself, whilst discussing your Google reference journey, my name is Ryan Evans. To start off this webinar, we've got some really exciting information to share with you too. We've listened to the community a lot over the last few months, and some of the ideas generated have been brilliant. Thank you to everybody who has been open to providing that feedback that has obviously allowed us to put some of those ideas into a reality. Firstly, the Google Reference Awards. All UK and Ireland Google Reference schools and colleges will soon have access to a nomination process that will feature a wide range of student, teacher, support staff and whole school categories. The next few months will see nominees come in, a shortlist announced, and then we really cannot wait to host the first ever Google Reference School and Colleges Awards evening. This will be an in-person event that's going to be taking place before the end of this academic year, where we hope to celebrate and champion the innovative work done by you, the schools and colleges involved in the programme from across the UK and Ireland. More details to follow in the coming weeks on that one, so please do keep an eye out in your inboxes and across social media. Secondly, and again, this has stemmed from feedback we've received, we want to start sharing our excellent schools and colleges resources. So we will soon see the launch of a share drive where Google for Education reference schools and colleges can start sharing their resources and best practices. And finally, and I'm sure the reason you are all watching this webinar is our guest webinar series. As I've mentioned, over the next few months, we'll be putting out monthly webinars to really dive into some of the great work that's going on across the UK and Ireland. Got some great guests coming up, but I'm delighted to start this off now then by introducing Mr. Scott Hayden and today's focus of how a holistic integration of AI can positively impact staff well-being. Scott, Google champion himself, the head of teaching, learning and digital at Basingstoke College of Technology, where he leads a team of staff that are digitally enriching the educational practices. Scott and his team have received multiple accolades, including the 2018 TESS FE Award for Outstanding Use of Technology. And obviously by being at the core of the college's initiative, that has won the Wellbeing at Work Award at the Hampshire Inspire Awards 2023, which I'm sure Scott will tell us all about shortly. So, Scott, a warm welcome to the webinar. Thank you for giving up some of your really busy schedule to join us. I mentioned a few accolades there that you and your team have picked up, but I'm sure you've your bio speaks volumes. You know, you've got a lot more different accolades that the college have picked up and are potentially picking up in the near future. Obviously the bio available to read here on the Google Reference School and College website. It really is inspiring to see that, and for you to be showcasing everything that you're doing there is great. But yeah, really looking forward to this. But how are you feeling now? How are you doing at Basingstoke College of Technology?
Yeah, all's well, mate. All's well. We're in a good place. We've got a senior management team who've been here for a while, so we've got consistency, and we're getting into hopefully a bit of a flow state, as it were. They call it, where things start to happen more organically, naturally. Once you've got a settled team, I've been here a long time as well. 15 years this year.
Wow.
So when you're here, when you put down roots and grow something over a long time, whether it be the student digital leaders who've become part of our team and work with us, or whether it be managers who've grown and invested and developed roots in the community, that's when the best work starts to happen, we find.
Yeah.
And we're in a position whereby we've got enough hours on the clock, as it were, to actually start to see the best work come to fruition, we like to think.
Definitely. And I've been aware of the impact that AI has been having with yourselves there for some time now. So to be able to bring you on to the first guest on this webinar series is certainly a win-win situation for the whole community, I think, itself. But the series is targeting sort of schools and colleges such as yours that are obviously using Google tools really effectively and are perhaps, looking to learn from other people's journeys into embracing everything that Google for Education has to offer. So, like I said, I'm sure you'll be able to explain that journey that you've been on, in depth, etc. now. So I think without any further ado, I'll hand over to you. I look forward to hearing all about it. And perhaps I'll have a couple of questions for you near the end. But yeah, cheers, Scott. Thank you. And all over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm Scott. I'm a teacher, but I'm also in charge of teaching, learning and digital here at the college. And we've got a real focus in our strategy around well-being and teacher well-being, and if the idea that if we take care of that first, the rest will start to follow. So we've been deliberately, mindfully and intentionally focusing on making sure we look after teacher well-being, and by doing that we started to see some wins. We started to see some things develop and evolve in the last not even a year really, that we're very happy and proud to be able to share with you. So we've got a team, and the team is made up of student digital leaders who've become apprentices and then members of our staff. We pride ourselves on that. We're really keen on developing and nurturing and growing the talent that we have into learning technologists here at the college, and leveraging these skills of our advanced practitioners and turning them into learning coaches. And they, with me, observe and coach our teachers. Our learning technologists are developed sort of in-house, as it were, and grow through apprenticeship schemes into members of our teaching and learning team. I look after this team. I'm very proud to say that I do that. Our teaching and learning and digital strategy has at the heart of it this very, I suppose, quite a simple concept of developing human skills and using technology to make sure we're prioritizing what Girdley and Hard so eloquently calls core skills, not soft skills, core skills. Those interpersonal human skills that are more valuable in an age of technological abundance than ever, that of compassion, originality, responsibility, and empathy. These are the skills that are more needed than ever, whether it be the Pearson's Future Skills Scanning Report or the World Economic Forum Horizon Scanning Report of what's needed in the future. It's consistently these human skills that are needed. So that's what we try to develop in our use of technology, both for staff and students. Now, before November 30th, 2022, when it happened, ChatGPT, we were already exploring AI, whether it be maths and English and science diagnostics that generated personalized pathways and enabled students to identify their blind spots and to navigate through machine learning tools like this with quizzes, interactive games that helped them to come to class prepared, ready, with instant feedback from Century, over 1 million questions answered in 5 years on Century for our students, and to free up our English and maths teachers in particular for more human-to-human, knee-to-knee coaching conversations, as it were. We saw time gains using tools like Century. About 5 years ago, we started with that. And tools like Motes we were using, accessible with Google. And the free version's one for up to 30 seconds free, but you can pay for premium, of course. And Mote gave personalized podcast feedback that transcribed into text and translated for many of our ESOL English speakers of other languages on our courses, speeding up marking for the teacher and making the feedback a little bit more personal and memorable. Other Google connected tools like Quizzes were leveraged at the college before ChatGPT and now after, actually, whereby we could give Quizzes a PDF, a link, or a file, and it would generate self-marking quizzes for starters, plenaries, checks on learning. Again, saving those increments of time for our teachers, teacher well-being, front and center of all we do. Edpuzzle, again, Google sign-in, and students can work through self-marking, interactive videos. So no passive consumption. They have to actively engage. Graham in construction will teach you how to do the halving joint, but it's going to stop at certain points and check to see whether you understand. You can prove your knowledge with an A, B, or C question, or a true or false statement, or other ways of ensuring you are understanding before you proceed. Saving teachers time again for more human skills in the classroom because the AI was assessing. This was the big one for us though before ChatGPT, whereby one of our childcare teachers, Sharon, was assessing loads of students at once. And we've all got to do presentations or witness statements or some variation of that in education. But she found it was taking her ages to mark. So using the Google form and using some Google form extensions, we were able to create this form where Sharon could watch the presentation and then tick a box on the Google form as to how well the student was doing. As you can see here, the structure example's got about 6 or 7 different options there. And the teacher can select the box or tick the circle, as it were, to signify how well they've done. And in doing so, for each of the sections, and it was about 10 sections on this presentation, which covered about 1.5 units of criteria, the Google form spoke to the Google Sheet, as it does in all Google forms. But using extensions from the Chrome Web Store, we were able to generate these documents. Now, these documents were instantaneously generated as a result of Sharon selecting the criteria from the presentation, which meant Sharon didn't have to go home and spend the weekend writing up the presentations because, as you can see here, it generated and scaffolded and formatted the feedback like so, saving Sharon probably about 9-10 hours time. Of course, she would refine and tweak things, but gave us a glimpse of what might be. Developing interpersonal and social skills as well, using tools like body swaps for instant feedback on how well they're coming across in terms of self-awareness or in an interview situation. Our learners use the app, the browser, and VR itself. But many of them are quite shy with a VR headset, interestingly. They like using the webcam to see their virtual avatar reacting in the interview situation and being scored and being given feedback from the AI as to how well they were performing, whether they needed to uncross their arms or speak slower or enunciate, whatever it might be. That saw some interesting gains again with AI giving that feedback. And this company Make Real in particular are really interesting because they generate this vocational virtual reality for a lot of companies, but they're also working with us in education to create this emotional recognition tool to give live feedback on emotion analysis of how our learners are coming across on camera when they are being spoken to, perhaps recording a vlog or maybe in an interview scenario. That's something that we're working on at the moment, but I thought it worthy of being shared in this presentation. Make Real do really good stuff, construction in particular, whether it be traffic marshalling, AI giving instant feedback and pointers, saving up our teachers' time to focus on more hands-on skills in the actual workshops and classrooms. And that was it for us. It was always that intention, using AI for that purpose. But post ChatGPT, post November 30th, 2022, we relatively quite slow to react at first. It was only until January, really, wasn't it? January 2023, when people really started to be sharing online about what was happening. And it was February 2023 when we had an inset day, a staff development day here. And one of our student digital leaders, there's Ben there, went on stage and in front of all the teachers spoke about the fact that all his classmates were using ChatGPT and other generative AI tools to do a lot of the work for them. And that shook us as a college. It made us think deeply about, well, how do we move forward from the fact that this is happening? The student digital leader's spoken about this, so can we just pretend that didn't happen? Pretend he didn't just reveal what we all thought was happening? And we moved deliberately, intentionally, and hopefully mindfully to act. And here's how we did it. We embraced AI and Google Bard in particular, now known as Google Gemini. And with the assumption that AI is wrong and to think of AI as a personal assistant, not a professor, we turned on Google Gemini for all staff and showed them this is an amazing auto-predict, essentially, built on a large language model that we can use to help us. I did some early tests myself in January, February of 2023, using ChatGPT and then Gemini to turn AI into my own personal life coach. My heroes there, George Orwell and David Bowie, giving me support and help and helping me to reflect, think, and to develop my career. I needed that in January. I can tell you, I was going through a bit of an existential crisis as to what I do next. I'm a bit conflicted about technology and the addictive and distracting nature of it. So to use it deliberately and intentionally was what I was trying to do. So George and David were trying to guide me. I was using AI to help me think about this. My daughter, I worked with her to actually use generative AI tools to turn it into a personalized maths tutor so she could think about her gaps in knowledge, and I gave report information to the large language model and fine-tuned it with things she was interested in. And she had this personal maths bot we named Fred to help her. And between two parents' evenings, we certainly closed the gap in terms of her maths development, something she needed to focus on. And we started to see there might be something here in these little tests. Then I started to bring it into the college in February of 2023. This here, is it a real picture or not? Who can tell these days? Chris, a chef lecturer, and a brilliant chef lecturer, was struggling with planning. And planning is always a bit of a blind spot of his, he'll be the first to admit. But a great chef lecturer. He needed to get his sequence of learning or scheme of work complete, and he spent a bit of time with me getting some help to do that. And he'd become this example of how we might move forward, because around about that time, January, February of 2023, he had babies, twins, and he was knackered and needed some help. So using Google Bard, Gemini, we were able to give prompts to the machine and to take all Chris's notes, his post-its, his menus, his half-written Google Docs, and to put it all together, give it to Google Gemini, and have it cook up his lesson plans in a sequential manner, relating to Bloom's taxonomy objectives, relating to the prevent agenda, relating to safeguarding, relating to British values, and relating to those other elements like knowledge, skills, and behaviours, and terms that we in English general further education need to be mindful of. And sure enough, in 2.5 hours, he had the entire year written. Of course, he would then adapt and tweak from then on, but it was over the blank page. And that was interesting. It led us to lead a group shortly after called the AI Ethics Group at the college, where we thought, blimey, with this superpower, we better double check that the IT guys are happy with it and the GDPR team are happy with it. So that group meets every month and has done for a year now, thinking about these things. We started to think about how we might rethink assessment in light of what Ben, the student digital leader, shared with us, and helping people in a post-generative AI world think about assessment. We gave prompts to all of our staff for sequences of learning, scheme of work essentially. And we gave other prompts to our staff as well. An AI misuse policy was created in February of last year as well. And of course, support from the wonderful learning coaches and technologists was available as well. This statement was included to safeguard staff and students against bad actors, as it were, using these tools for less than creative and kind reasons. Zero tolerance for counterfeiting human likeness in text, audio, video, image. Something we've all got to be mindful of as educators moving forward. But forward we moved, and in the sequence of learning, template front and centre was permission, as it were, for our staff to embrace and use these tools to help them with their planning and resource creation. Not so much for assessment, but for planning and resource creation. Assessment's a bit more complicated, and we're just dipping our toe into that now. But for planning and resource creation, we gave the prompts to our staff, leaving the square brackets for them to input the nuance, the detail, the subtopics, the specificity, the craft, as it were. But the prompts that would format the sequence of learning, the planning document for our college, was given to all staff, and all staff were trained on how to complete their sequences of learning from August through to October. So we had uniform, standardized, continuous planning that was the best we've had in the 15 years I've been here, freeing up teacher time to focus on more creative endeavors rather than admin. This prompts document, updated all the time, was given to our staff. So whether it be staff wanting to simplify a complex topic or to adapt a resource for somebody with special educational needs, or perhaps to summarize an article, or maybe to perhaps come up with 3 creative starter tasks. This document, every week in our all-staff email, is shared and updated with new examples of how we can use prompts in Google Gemini to generate resources and planning materials. Departments like automotive have used it really creatively to generate these task sheets for their 24 assessments as part of their level 2 qualification, so students can see what a good one looks like. These were generated by Google Gemini using the prompts from their wonderful teaching team. Using Google Gemini alongside tools like Teachermatic is something else we've embraced here. Teachermatic doesn't even need you to use the prompting approach with the right phrasing of the information, the inputs. Using these different buttons, you can generate flashcards, or you can generate slides, or you can generate infographics, or you can generate booklets, scenarios. Really nice tool. But we found a lot of our staff liking Google Gemini because they could be more creative. For example, we had our wonderful early years and childcare teacher mentioned earlier on, Sharon, who did the presentation marking in the Google form, using tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini more commonly to have theorists in her area come to life, as it were, and her students talk to these theorists. Whether it be Jean Piaget or Lev Vygotsky, the students could talk to the theorists and interrogate them and find out what they thought about particular topics, or help them to delve deeper into their thinking on certain topics to strengthen their own work, their case studies they were doing on that particular theorist. It was interesting, and it gave us something perhaps that Teachermatic wouldn't have given us, because Google Gemini enabled the students to go a bit further. The prompt itself to bring to life the theorist was something that Gemini enabled, because the teacher's idea mixed with the AI platform led to something we'd never anticipated. Using tools like image creation, Midjourney, but there's many others as well, and it's coming to Gemini very soon as well. Our ESOL learners, English speakers of other languages, were able to practice English skills and iterate, edit, and adapt their writing to generate artworks. One student in particular got really into it, the wonderful Camilla, who, using her Google sign-in, was able to research using Google Gemini, but sign into ThingLink using her Google accounts and essentially app smash lots of different apps she brought together and generated an interactive virtual Bible study using a symphony of different AI generative tools to bring to life all the characters from the Old Testament story of Genesis and have them interacting. And if you click on Adam and Eve in the top left there would be AI avatars generated of Adam and Eve, and they'd even speak as well. And you'd be able to navigate this 360 space in ThingLink, which is a great edtech tool you can access with your Google accounts. And she generated something that was essentially a mini universe, this interactive virtual Bible study for her church. As a glimpse of how AI can help us transcend criteria and go further than we anticipated from certainly the beginning of last academic year. It was exciting. This method here from the wonderful Dan Fitzpatrick, I'm sure you've all heard of Dan Fitzpatrick. He's the AI educator, don't you know? He gave this wonderful platform, or rather mnemonic, as it were, to help us when we're prompting. And Camilla, in particular, used this quite a lot to help her generate her virtual interactive Bible study. When we're giving information to Google Gemini in particular, giving it a prompt is great as a minimum, so the text input of what you want, but many of us just stop there and you treat it like a Google search. What Dan Fitzpatrick has taught us, and many of these other prompt engineers, is we need to go a bit further, to think about giving it a role as well, tell it what it is. So for me, I use, for example, you are an expert head of teaching and learning in digital, 30 years experience, who is empathetic and caring and mindful of teacher well-being. I'm explicit. I'll say whether I want bullet points, or whether I want it in paragraphs, or perhaps whether I want it to be in a certain amount of words, like 200 words, for example, or perhaps appropriate for a report. And in terms of parameters, in terms of its tone of voice, in terms of whether it's formal or informal. And you can see you can go further here by asking the machine to ask follow-up questions to ensure that it understands what you're asking of it. To get it to rate and rank its own response as well as to how well it thinks it's done. And appealing to the emotions as well, which seems a bit unusual, but to get it to do that analysis of its emotional take on prompt as well is something we can really get into. So rather than just asking it to do something in a sentence or so, we can really go into depth with our prompt engineering. This is something we're teaching our teachers to do. But whatever comes out, we don't just, take without thinking twice about it. We reflect and think deeply and assume it is wrong and evaluate it and think about the accuracy, ask it for sources and references like Camilla did when she was creating her virtual Bible study. Looking for bias and misconceptions and transforming and updating the content as well. We work with our staff and students an empathy map with them when they're using AI to think about how it is for them using these tools. It's overwhelming, all of this superpower that we've had given to us, this 25th century technology that's landed in the 21st century. And by empathy mapping, we can find out where their pain point is and how we can help to free up their time to make things more impactful. And by sitting with staff and students, we've started to realise that quoting and bibliographies and Harvard references, that's something that AI can help with. So many of our HE learners, we've been helping them with this prompt here to help them with their referencing when they're writing their assignments. Of course, checking for hallucinations to make sure these are actual books is crucial. But certainly prompts being given to students is being helpful. People with learning needs using prompts to enhance their support. We had one lad in engineering who was not quite understanding a complex formula, but Google Gemini, we could photograph the equation from the board, simplify it, and then relate it in terms of metaphors and analogies to connect it to something he was interested in. In this instance, the Dodge 2015, his favourite car. and it then related the equation from the board, photographed, simplified, and using analogies and metaphors from the chassis, the design, the suspension, to make it connect for this learner. Something as simple as that prompt there in Google Gemini is really useful to help explain complex topics to a 10-year-old. Not literally, just so it's eloquently, simply explained, using topics that are of interest to that of the person learning. I use that one on myself all the time. All of our staff have had training on these different platforms, and we continue to do that all year round. But something that's worth sharing with you all is this here, that there's other tools like Snapchat's My AI that are being used by a lot of our learners. And you can see on the right-hand side here that I'm acting as a childcare learner. This was back in June I did this, to get it to write an assignment for me. And sure enough, it makes a very good attempt at it, and then a very passable attempt, and then arguably a distinction level attempt by the end of this 4-minute video. For the sake of speed, I'm going to zoom forward a bit to show you what you can do. I'm asking it to add an example from a nursery and working with toddlers, because in this scenario I'm working with toddlers as a childcare student, and it can build from this chat. Now this chat, this My AI, lives at the very top of Snapchat. You have to pay for premium features to turn it off. And this is where a lot of our learners are. And I'm talking to you from a post-16 general further education college. And as you can see from the stats on the left, this is where many of this demographic are, particularly here in the UK. What is most interesting about this tool is that, as you can see at the bottom of the screen there to the right, if I ask it to add some spelling errors so my teacher doesn't think it's AI, sure enough it will. And this is an old video now. It's now far better and far more nuanced, and a lot of plagiarism detectors really struggle. I'll rephrase that. Most plagiarism detectors struggle to see and identify successfully AI-generated text, such as the nuance and subtlety of these billions of data points being woven into this unique alchemy every time. Worth sharing. So we're thinking about authentic assessment now, moving to more authentic assessment, vlogs, podcasts, Google sites, blogs, images, witness statements, professional discussions, which we're doing a lot of at the college. We're giving resources to our staff to actually help the students capture evidence of themselves, whether it be our refugee learners, for example, capturing audio and video of themselves for their speaking and listening exams, whether it be us translating resources using AI so that it's accessible to our refugee learners, many of whom had to be assessed at speed because of, well, circumstances. Tools like Canva, which can be signed into with the Google sign in again, free to us in education, by the way, Canva, and it's magnificent, are much recommended by us here at BCOT. The translation capabilities and the generative AI capabilities within Canva are quite something. Of course, sense checking it and editing it, as it were, whatever you get out of the request is crucial, but the translation capability is incredible. So we've been using AI to check that our ESOL and refugee learners are understanding and are comfortable with a lot of the instruction. And with many of the refugee learners we've even had our principal give little wellbeing checks and messages of welcome to people joining the college. So this is our principal, who cannot speak Polish, speaking Polish, using a tool called Hayden.
Witam, nazywam się Antony Bravo i jestem dyrektorem Basingstoke College of Technology. Cieszę się, że witam naszych nowych uczniów. Angielski.
So these tools, the generative AI tools, are here. Maybe it's too much power too soon, and the potential for someone, bad actors as it were, to use it for less than kind reasons is something that videos like that can start a conversation of with our students to help them be mindful of, just because we can do all these things, should we? And what's the intention behind this? For us, it's about teacher well-being and enhancing well-being of our students as well, and improving learning. But the intention is crucial. Something we started to test recently is assessments, and using consenting adult learners, we've started to use transcripts from vlogs and podcasts as assessments, because we can't just use essays all the time anymore. Not that we were anyway, but more so than ever, we can't just use essays. And using the transcripts feature and certain prompts in Google Gemini to give feedback to students, which is interesting because in many instances it's more objective than me. And I've got my biases and I tilt the playing field a little bit sometimes. No matter how objective and professional I like to think I am, I'm just a man, a tired man, marking 20 assignments at once. Sometimes having a second assessor in the generative AI tool is revealing and interesting and can help us to think twice about our assessment decisions. But that's a prototype at the moment, using Google Gemini for feedback, and it's quite something, I've got to say. But a controlled prototype, must stress that point with consenting adults. Ultimately, it's about teacher well-being, and if it doesn't give time and energy back to our teachers to focus more on the human elements that can never be automated, then we don't move forward. I've used it to write our strategy as well at the college. I've got AI to act as my heroes. So whether it be the great Neri Oxman, this wonderful biologist, helping me to think about sustainable, eco-friendly approaches, then that's great because it helps me with that particular section of my teaching, learning and digital strategy. Whether it be Rick Rubin, the great record producer, helping me think about creativity, or whether it be Yuval Noah Harari, helping me to think about the historical political significance of embracing AI too quickly, or maybe Marcus Aurelius helping me to think about how we're helping with resilience and mental toughness for this generation of learners we're working with. Using AI to act as my heroes and help me to enhance certain sections of the strategy. It's been fun and useful, saving time, and we're currently at 5 hours a week being saved by our staff who are embracing Google Gemini and other generative AI tools. That's what we want. And these human skills, more valuable now than ever, need to be safeguarded, protected, and enhanced using these tools, or else we're very skeptical of these tools unless they are helping with these core human capabilities. This website is really good, by the way. AI-in-education.co.uk. Some of the best practice in the UK being shared there, and we're very lucky to be able to share what we're up to there as well. Really recommend you have a look at that. There we go. Your time, your attention are your most valuable resources. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us on this presentation.
Wow, Scott. Wow, that was... I laughed. I was inspired. I was blown away. It's some journey you've been on there at BCOT. Where to start? I've been making notes and thinking, okay, I'm going to ask Scott this, and then you answered it. So I have got a couple of mine. I think I was going to say, sort of, how did it spark? How did this journey start? And you described about Ben, the digital leader, coming into that sort of presentation, and you almost had to react, I suppose, and try and be proactive, pardon the pun, with the sort of AI element of it. But where you've been to where you are now, it's just over 12 months. And I think it's transformative. And you've just said that at the end, over 5 hours a week of staff time that you've saved. And, I use it quite a bit myself in my day-to-day job, and I can see the impact it's having, and I've embraced other, the third-party app, Canva in particular, I've used, and you mentioned Moat, Quizzes, Edpuzzle, Thing, all these different third-party companies, and obviously in collaboration with Google for Education, we can use it in that single sign-on manner. You're able to, like you said, app smash across them for such a wide range of things. two parts to this question from your daughter's angle, and also I want to put my sort of reference school and college hat on, and I'm someone starting fresh here, but for a young person like your daughter, in her case, she used Fred, and I love that, sort of giving it a personality, if you like. How did she embrace it, and how has her journey been with it?
So it was still maths to her. So she was still going, oh, I don't have to do the homework. I don't have to put in time to sit and do this. But what was really interesting was I got the report, right, from her teacher, like a printed off rather report.
Yeah.
And I used Google Lens to suck up the text from it. And then I put that into a Google Doc. So I had that written, a note, which I had there. And then when she was struggling with maths, that's a bit of her English skills are excellent. Her maths are good. It's just that maths is something she needs to develop a bit more. I took that Google Doc with the information from her report from her school teacher, and I gave it to Google Gemini, and I said, this is a report of a young lady who's 9 years old. Act as, so that's the first part, a prompt, right? Yeah. And then the next part of the prep model, as it were, was to give it a role. You are an expert teacher in helping 9-year-old English school children to develop and grow and enhance their understanding of algebra and metaphors, similes, whatever it was on the report. Then expectations. I expect you to use fun, irreverent, playful, interesting language with emojis, and reference the Netflix show Wednesday, and reference Olivia Rodrigo lyrics, and reference all the things that my daughter likes, right? And then parameters, the parameters of the prep model, prompt, role, expectations, parameters. The parameters were, don't write in long sentences, be succinct, write in an informal style, be playful, be fun, be encouraging. And then from that, I would then bring in Lucy, my daughter, and she would sit and talk with Fred, and back and forth it would go. And it would sometimes send her to these interactive online games, and sometimes it would give her checks on learning in the actual chat as well. And she'd do 15 minutes with Fred maybe 3 times a week over the course of 2 months. We just saw that the gains increase. I know that Khan Academy are developing something like this, like the Khan Migo, they're calling it. And there's elements of it in the Google ecosystem with practice sets could become something like that, I think, I didn't mention practice sets, but English and maths guys are using that a lot for revision at the moment, freeing up more human time for our English and maths teachers to coach and develop, because practice sets is giving them instant feedback like Century Tech is.
Brilliant. So you having that opportunity to work one-to-one with your daughter, 9-year-old, you said there, understand it, that makes sense. How would you, which way would you suggest a class, let's say a 9-year-old pupils in a class of 30, is it something that they can teach the pupils to have that interaction with them? Or is that something that the teacher would have to prompt? What would you recommend?
Yeah, that's where we want to be, right? I see what you're thinking. You want to get to that stage as soon as possible, because that personalized experience is what we're aiming at. So what we're doing right now, to be honest with you, is we are having a member of our team, our digital team, those learning technologists I spoke about at the very top, who are going into lessons armed with a Chromebook and are able to serve as like a facilitator or a Sherpa, as it were, are able to sort of prompt alongside the students. Okay. So the best way, I think, to make that first step is to have somebody who can be that intermediary with the Chromebook to go and sit with them, and Gemini, because Gemini can't be turned on for these under 18-year-olds yet. And to actually, in one-to-ones or small groups, bring them over. That's what we did with those theorists, like talking to Vygotsky. So the students would come over and they'd start, asking Lev Vygotsky these really tough questions. And I've got him on the ropes, and they're like, he's trying to defend himself. And that was really interesting to see. But always that professional, GDPR mindful, educated professional as the facilitator, holding the Chromebook and doing it alongside them at the moment. That's what we're doing just to safeguard these prototypes and to make sure we're doing it in the best way we can, rather than just turning it all on for students and just saying, yeah, run, do whatever you want with it, which I'm tempted to do at times, to be honest with you, because I think, you know what, they're doing it anyway with Snapchat AI, but we're trying to scaffold it up, I suppose, what I'm trying to say, with these little prototypes here, a group there, a couple of individuals in that class there, and trying our best to make sure we're doing it deliberately and intentionally. But it's hard because they're doing so much in their personal life. Snapchat AI, Perplexity AI is very popular as well. And of course, Google Gemini, their personal accounts, they're doing it anyway, is the truth. But we, in the classroom, are trying to toe the line and make sure we're being innovative, but at the same time mindful of all the risks.
Yeah, that was going to be a potential question about ethics, but obviously you said you set that up to maintain, that you were abiding by the guidelines, the rules, and that with GDPR and whatnot. Okay, I could fire off so many questions, and I'm sure others will have questions they're wanting to ask you. And I think with these webinars, what we're hoping to develop is more of a collaborative network for our reference schools and colleges. And like I said, I've asked you some, no doubt others will. So, Scott, with regards to future opportunities for collaboration, using you as almost an expert in the field now of how your journey's gone over the last 12 months or so, what's the best ways, or is there opportunities for that networking?
Yeah, we should have a good Google chat space, I think. We should have one for AI. I've made one already with some colleges in, which I'd love to add more people to, now I think of it. And it'd be lovely to, in a Google chat space, for us all to be sharing ideas, prompts, how you're using Gemini. I think that would be so fun to have, because you want to feel less alone when you're doing these things. And because it's so, train track in front of the train sort of stuff that we're talking about here. It's just nice to be able to sense check things with peers. That's why we set up the AI ethics group. So internally, we've got a 3-tick process: teaching and learning, IT, GDPR. If it doesn't get all 3 ticks, we don't go ahead with it. And it'd be nice to have something sort of external as well, with a lot of different professionals who use Google for teaching and learning, just talking and sharing about AI, because we're not precious about these things. We'll happily share these things.
Brilliant. No, I appreciate that. And obviously your email address and the school's website have been flashed up on the screen there as well. But going forward, as I said at the start, the hub, the reference school and colleges shared drive, is going to be launched very, very soon. I'm sure, Scott, you'd be willing to put some of those resources up on there. And yeah, definitely that collaboration in a Google chat space, I think would be really helpful for a lot of people. One word that's going to stand out for me, potentially off the overwhelming, you said, and I think to somebody starting their journey, it could very well feel overwhelming. But, once, I think, for me, one of my takeaways is the fact that, you can just have a go, have a try of it, see how you get on with it and develop. And I think that's something that you and your staff have done. And you've got it, like I said, in just over 12 months. You're experts in the field and you're doing really well with it. I'm really keen to see where it goes in the future, because it's not going away. Another quote you put down, it's 25th century technology in the 21st century. And I think when you look at it, it's perhaps I didn't expect to see this level of AI in our lifetimes, but it is here and it's available for us educators to interact with. So yeah, really appreciate your time. I know how busy and innovative you're being there. So thank you again, and look forward to seeing you. Well, hopefully in person. We'll catch up soon.
Hope so. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers, Scott. Take care.